With the temperature dropping and rain falling from the sky, it pretty much want to stay out of the weather, and I looked all around to see what could potentially warm things up. Well, then this appeared in the driveway and, well, changed the overall forecast. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the 2021 Genesis GV80, and pretty much from the outside, it definitely increased the temperature a hair, but climbing on the inside with its very plush interior, definitely rounded things out to feel very summer-esque. Now, if you're not familiar with Genesis, it is the luxury brand of Hyundai and pretty much has stepped out on its own as of late. Now, it came out as a Motto originally, as you know, evolved into an Equus sedan and grew into what we see here. Now, there are three crossover offerings from Genesis, the GV70, the GV80, and the GV90, each growing upon the next. This one's fitting squarely in the middle. Now, what I like with this model and this brand is how it delivers luxury at a, well, fairly reasonable price. And that's the kind of thing that I kept looking at this vehicle, thinking it was, well, going to be so much more than it was when it comes to dollars. When it comes to premium, it delivered every point. You'll see that on the inside, but starting here on the outside. Really tight body lines, no voluptuous curves here and there, really sliced off haunches, as you're going to see on the side, barely any chiseling, and some signature touches here on the side that you're going to see across the premium luxury. You got to put some implied venting. It just, well, takes you to the next level. As you sweep down, the proverbial tightening up, liposuctioning, some good old Botox here and there, and just that good old sweeping down and angling out just a little bit. You can obviously tell this is a touch of class with the accents in chrome sweeping down with this almost mirror-like accent here in the bottom third. Now, no rubber cladding to be found because this isn't an off-road warrior, but really staying on the beaten path. Now, my reference to crossover was kind of a Freudian slip because, well, this is a true SUV, though it feels more like the other segment. So refined, so car-like, so nimble, and not bulky and filling, which I typically associate with the sport utility market. Now, from the size, it fits in exactly where I want it. Great numbers, giving it in the upper mid-size segment. Now, overall, it's about 194 inches. Wheelbase fairly stretched at 116. Width substantial at 77 inches and about 67 inches tall. Now, those are good numbers that equate to interior volume. Now, interestingly, with its size, you could argue that it could squeeze in a third row. Just not the case here on the GV80, mainly because it wants the best of all worlds. Great interior comfort, huge amount of cargo space, and just a level of overall comfort that you would not be able to deliver in that third row. Now, lastly is this profile, really setting the tone, and I like how it has an elongated look. Good pronounced front end and sleek lines. Obviously seeing this nice modest arching from front to back, leveling off here at the back end. Really tight body lines that again sweep all the way down the vehicle with just a hair flare at the back, but no voluptuous curves to be found on this overall tight model. Now, one point of clarification, I did reference the GV80 as being a 2-row, 5-passenger vehicle, but there is a third row if you opt for the specially equipped V6. Genesis says, heck, if you're going to need a V6, you probably have a bigger family, so you're going to need that third row after all. But for all intents and purposes, this is traditionally a 2-row vehicle. Now, with the 2 rows, as you see it, the big payoff is the acreage here in the cargo area. Now, interestingly, I could not find any true numbers of what awaits you when this rear hatch arises, but we'll take a little garner at it and guesstimate the best we can. Now, first off, really the design back here, pretty much nice, straightforward overall design cues, elongated roof line up here, good old traditional windshield wiper. What I do like on premium vehicles is this being tucked up here, just gives it a nice clean overall look. Sweeping down, one thing you're not going to see is any clunky handles to operate the rear hatch, not even down here where I thought it would be. Instead, a nice hidden button right here on the windshield wiper, so obviously it serves a point to be there. Touches of chrome here and there, and obviously dual exhaust down low. Now, one thing about this vehicle, it's about safety. What I like is the surround view cameras. Camera here at the back, on the sides, and at the front, really give you a viewpoint all the way around. There are also some other cameras that come into play when you're driving. I'll show you those in just a minute. But what lies beneath here is a big payoff. Just press the button right there. And of course, premium means this is going to automatically rise to the occasion. Once this opens, huge amount of acreage really from here to the back of the seats. Now it did come with this nice rear tonneau cover that of course hides everything that awaits. It is kind of just a material, so it's not acting like a shelf, but everything really has a nice floor and a really huge amount of space. One thing I didn't understand initially was why is this tonneau cover bar so far back from the second row, but as you can tell, the reclinability for backseat drivers is quite extreme. So if this bar had been moved forward just a hair, there wouldn't really be any added comfort. So I like the fact that that does accommodate for backseat drivers. Again, nice huge amount of floor and some operation underneath. Once you open this up, you're going to find a decent little cargo area here on the side. You do have some quick access little hatches on the side as well. If you go a little bit further, you're also going to find a spare tire. Just simply lift up right here and it reveals a full-size spare and all the operation. That's one thing a lot of vehicles are leaving out. I like the fact that it's here on the GV80. To lay the second rows flat, if you're loading cargo, you have these buttons here on the side, left side and right. Just simply press right here and they tumble forward really nice and easy. Now when it comes to designing a premium luxury SUV, it's these subtle touches that really set the tone. Not too much, not too little. Over sculpting could make it seem out of place at the country club. Too little, it's going to be a plain Jane and will be overshadowed. Here on the GV80, really masterfully done. Again, along the sides like I pointed out, but again, just these subtle touches. As you sweep down, it sculpts back around to that side. These little hints and flare outs, really just a touch of elegance. Up front, grille warfare, front and center, really garnering your attention with this huge amount of open face grille, adorned of course in the bright chrome accents we see around the vehicle. Genesis wings right across the upper portion. As you sweep down, just a hair of flare out, but everything really, again, nice and tight, not protruding into the wind. Really just got a lot of blunt force trauma. What you're also going to notice is active shutter control, really opening and closing as needed. And even though it is this broad and wide, really most of the air flowing right through here, cordoned off on the outer side, and obviously airflow down below. Headlight assembly is the next big talking point, with nice, huge, sweeping horizontal, menacing beams that really are crossed into upper and lower tiers, and lower venting down here on the outer side. Now the GV80 comes standard in rear-wheel drive, but as you step up, all-wheel drive becomes pretty much the only options. Now on this one, you have two 6550s wrapping 20-inch wheels, and what I like is what we dressed up here at the four corners, kind of a different take of the proverbial spoke look with this added kind of fin, dressed up in a little bit darker accent. This also goes along with the overall premium look. What you're also going to notice is, again, substantial ground clearance, really elevated, and this vehicle can definitely do some damage in those slippery situations. Now, when it comes to horsepower under the hood, the GV80 delivers pretty much with turbocharged across the board. Two options when it comes to the power plant, either a 2.5 liter inline four-cylinder that delivers 300 horses and 311 foot-pounds of torque, or the more spirited 3.5 liter V6. Now that's around about 375 horses and 391 foot-pounds of torque, both of them coupled to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, smart key systems can be found pretty much across the industry, from Econo getters on up to premium vehicles, but I like when you get to a luxury liner like this that it has a little bit more touch of elegance. Like you see at the mirrors when the vehicle is locked, it gives you a visual kind of cue that, hey, this vehicle is locked. Also kind of minimizes its overall footprint, obviously preventing scrapes and dings and potentially snapping off of the mirrors if you have a clumsy neighbor that parks beside you. What I also like is as you get close, it's smart level, knows you're there, illuminates the perimeter lighting, and just an added touch of elegance. Also, the intuitive feel, pretty much put your hand right here, unlocks with these. Now the security on this vehicle really sweeps all the way around right down to the fill-up area. So when this vehicle is locked, so is this, but when it's unlocked, so much easier to gain access versus the good old pull tab or push button there on the dash. Now it is a throwback Thursday when it comes to the cap system, with the traditional cap instead of the capless. Now when it comes to legroom numbers, you're going to find around about 41 inches in the front, 38 inches in the back. Great comfort across the board. Now as for overall seating, you're going to find individualized attention on the outer sides with a nice traditional seating there in the middle. Now you'll find kind of a 70-30 split when it comes to the back seat, allowing you to do different changes to seating when it comes to cargo space. As for operation, certainly you can fold these down with the operation at the back, but you also have the manual lever here on the side, which will lay it flat, or this button here. Not sure why you have both, but maybe if this one fails, you can go old school if you need. Sunny days are hard to find this time of year, but just in case one pops up, nice sunshades for back seat drivers that just lock into place with ease. Powered front seats to be expected, but the driver gets a little bit more touch of elegance, specifically with the massage tool here and the added support for the thigh by simply just pulling out. This area extends, or push it in and it rolls back under. What I also like is when you barely come into contact with these buttons, the dash illuminates with the seat controls to allow you to see what you're fiddling with versus trying to guess which does what. Front center dash, you're going to find this huge oversized touchscreen system, though arguably it is more than an arm stretch away. Rarely going to use it with your digits. Instead, you're going to use this central control area right through here. Now, what you're going to notice is it does kind of go around left and right, as well as touch sensitive there in the middle. And as you interact with it, the screen up above obviously changes, though figuring out how this coordinates does take a little bit of getting used to. Now, what you're going to first notice is as you turn the wheel, you can sweep all the way to the left, get back to your home screen. I like that this is kind of a default, a little less distracting, keep your eyes on the road instead of on the screen. But when you do need to see things using the outer wheel, you can pretty much just select back and forth, find what you're looking for, then simply press down in the middle. Now, when I got to the radio, this was a little bit more cumbersome than I prefer because I just didn't know how to get from one segment to the next. Ended up changing the radio from traditional to satellite and back and forth and just lost my way. Worst case, I go back and hit the home button, get back here and find a whole bunch of other options. So one area you might have to spend a lot of your time is getting used to, well, this system. Just below the central control knob for the infotainment, you will find the gear shifter knob, though I'd say it isn't, well, status quo, but instead looks like a crystallized knob and illuminates quite well at night. Now, to interact with it, just simply pull left or right, go left for reverse, go all the way to right for drive, or just simply press the P button for park. Now, over here on the right are the various driving modes, as well as activating the cameras, which again give you a nice surround view like we see here. Now, when it comes to gauge cluster, you're going to have a look of traditional analog tach and speedometer, though the speed is the only throwback Thursday with a digital readout there on the right. Now, I mentioned all the cameras around this vehicle, and they come into play when you're driving, specifically when you turn your turn signal on. That's going to give you a nice downward view of what could potentially be in the way, maybe some, well, curb harshness that maybe your rims could come into contact with. Now, low on the dash, you're going to find climate controls here on the GV80. It is a tri-zone system with backseat drivers getting a similar setup. Now, when it comes to temperature select, nice oversized knobs for both front occupants. In the back, one of these will be for temperature, the other side for fan speed. Now, for fan speed in this mode up here, you do have this nice digital readout that pretty much controls everything for climate. If I want to increase the fan speed, there are various gradient buttons right there. Just simply press right there, immediately go up to it. If I want to go increment by increment down or up, just simply hit the little button right through there. Everything nice and sleek. As for seating, you do have heated and cooled seats, really dialing in specifically to overall comfort. When it comes to connectivity, everything's going to be hidden underneath this nice retractable cover in the form of 2 USBs and this wireless charging pad. Now, I mentioned earlier how I got lost on this screen, really couldn't figure out how to find my next radio station. That's mainly because I didn't look around hard enough to find these, well, rolling knobs front and center right in front of me. Now, what they do here on the left side, they roll up and down for volume. On the right, the tune select, just simply roll it up and down, and the satellite radio really navigates with ease. Now, on the steering wheel, you're going to find controls for entertainment here on the left side, as well as connectivity with your phone. Do have the rolling control for volume. This is for tune select, both for favorite and individualized stations one by one. Not as easy to use as the rolling knob, but it is good for your favorites. Over here on the right side for cruise control and changing the selections there on the digital readout on the gauges. Some of the loudest complaints come from backseat drivers and the lack of legroom numbers. Not the case here on the GV80, but just in case you do have someone that needs just a little bit more breathing room and the front passengers not giving a little more space, well, they can simply reach around, press this button, slide the seat forward, or even take the seat back up. Connectivity is across the board, even for backseat drivers, in the form of 2 USBs and traditional household outlet. The old saying that if you have to ask how much something is, you probably can't afford it. Well, that saying doesn't hold true here, because if you ask, you might be surprised, well, how great the pricing is on these vehicles. Now, starting is around about $49,000, going on up to about a starting price of $60,000 on the upper models. But the luxury, fit, and trim you get on this vehicle could be tens of thousands of dollars more on some of the competition. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.